The leaders of China, Russia, and India meeting at a security summit. They seem to be touting a potential new alliance. Let's bring in former CIA station chief and Fox News contributor Dan Hoffman. So Dan, let's break this down. We clearly saw the images, the video that is intended to send a message to the U.S. Here they are cozying up, getting friendly, smiling, shaking hands. What do you think it means for the U.S.?
Well, those are images, and they're designed to project friendly relations among those three countries. For sure, India wants to ensure that they gain some leverage as they try to play off one great power against another. They've just been subjected to 50% tariffs by the Trump administration, and so that's certainly one reason why Prime Minister Modi is cozying up to China. But it's worth noting that Modi stopped in Japan on the way to that SCO conference to discuss security issues with the Japanese. As for China, certainly this is a propaganda opportunity for Xi Jinping. He's touting a so-called multipolar world. What that means for China is an opportunity to ensure that less powerful neighbors don't have the wherewithal, don't have the support, the alliances to defend themselves when China seeks to exploit them economically, or, as in the case of Russia and Ukraine, invade their neighbor. China certainly is focused on targeting Taiwan as well. So I think that's what's sort of behind this, and I expect that our intelligence community is mounting a full-court press for all the behind-the-scenes discussions, the collection of intelligence on the relationships among these leaders that's so important to President Trump.
Does it seem, Dan, that they are hoping, and particularly as you point out, she's talking about this Cold War mentality, and we need a way to live in a world order that's not so unstable, shots directly at President Trump, if you will. Do you think they're trying to say, look, there's a different new world order, and this is it, we're the new superpowers?
Well, the fact is that China's the country that's militarizing the South China Sea, mounting all sorts of nefarious espionage operations all over the world, including here in the United States, stealing other countries' intellectual property. China's unfair trade practices are a real danger, a threat to the rest of the world. That has to be of great concern, and they're assisting Russia in Russia's war against Ukraine by importing Russia's hydrocarbons, just like India is, at reduced prices, and selling Russia dual-use technology. So I think we all see that for what it is. This is just typical Xi Jinping propaganda efforts.
You mentioned the war in Ukraine. President Putin made some remarks basically saying that, confirming that he had reached some sort of understanding with President Trump back at the Alaska summit. And he's also asking for NATO to be curtailed before any peace talks could come. Anything coming out of this you think shows us that really this might be headed in a certain direction?
Well, I think the timing of President Putin's comments is certainly worth noting, because this is the 2-week period that President Trump set, during which he would allow things to play out and then make a decision on where we would be headed, whether further sanctions, secondary sanctions on Russia, additional military assistance to Ukraine for which Europe would pay. So I think that's the motivation for Vladimir Putin. Just as Putin deployed rhetorical nuclear brinkmanship to try to deter the Biden administration, and they did, from giving Ukraine the military assistance that Ukraine needed, I think Vladimir Putin thinks he can use flowery diplomatic talk to give us some hope that there's a chance to find a diplomatic off-ramp when there isn't one. And I think President Trump and his team see through that quite clearly.
Well, and my last question, Dan, really is, and you and I have talked about this before, in the wake of Alaska, we saw Putin launch his deadliest attack on Kyiv after this summit, killing some 23 people, injuring dozens of others. He had another last week drone attack in the Zaporizhia region in southern Ukraine. So again and again, Putin just demonstrates he'll talk peace, but then he only ramps up the war. So how does this ever change?
Yeah, listen, if there's one thing I learned from trying to see the world through the twisted eyes of Vladimir Putin for decades at the CIA, it's that when the KGB guy in the Kremlin talks, he's just obfuscating. It's just propaganda, disinformation. If we really want to know what he thinks, check out his actions, which have never wavered. He's launched unrelentless attacks on Ukraine's civilians and their infrastructure. He wants to topple the government of Ukraine. That's his strategic objective, and he hasn't wavered from that. He'll talk about other things, about peace and things like that, and he'll use his press spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, to do the same thing, and his foreign minister. But at the end of the day, those are the Russian actions, and we need to deter them. I think that was the lesson that President Reagan left for us. That's the message of peace through strength. We can conduct diplomatic negotiations at the highest level. We kind of need to have our bayonet aimed straight at the Russian Kremlin's chest there and ensure that they understand we mean business.
Yeah, no doubt. President Trump's patience may eventually start wearing thin. Dan Hoffman, great insight as always. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Labor Day.
Thanks. Good to see you. Have a good day.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.